Hello and welcome to the Hole in My Heart podcast. This is episode 261, How to Become a Person.
We're going to digitally print you today to turn you into a person. Now, welcome to the Hole in My Heart podcast, where we talk about how the gospel is good news for everyone every day. We're coming at you from the lovely WCSG radio studio, and I am Lori Krieg, your host, and next to me is not 3D printed person, Matt Krieg, licensed therapist, all-around great guy. Are you still learning how to become a person?
Yep. Yeah.
Really?
Very, very much so, yes.
How today are you learning how to become a person?
Many different ways, I guess. Learning to accept that I've made mistakes and they're not fully gone even when they come up again.
And you're still valuable in the process of that.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Anyway, there's more there. Maybe we'll unpack it at the end. But the theme of this season is how to become healthy disciples who make healthy disciples. And so we have someone, Debra Fileta, who is going to be online in the studio audience with us online. And she is going to talk about her new book called People Skills. And we're going to ask her, how do we become people? Help us understand how to develop people skills so that we can engage this world as healthy disciples and, God willing, God helping us make healthy disciples. But Matt Krieg, who is Debra?
Yes, Debra Fileta is a licensed professional counselor, a national speaker, and founder of True Love Dates, who is passionate about helping people build healthy relationships and experience emotional and spiritual wholeness in Christ. She is the host of Love and Relationships podcast, and the author of several books, including her latest, People Skills.
All right, well, with that, let's officially welcome Debra to the podcast. Welcome, Debra.
It's so good to be with you.
We're so glad to have you. Well, we're going to dive right in with a question that we ask every guest, and it really helps us get to know you and your story and can often shape the rest of the conversation. If part of the gospel is I'm more sinful and flawed in myself than I ever dared believe, yet at the very same time, I'm more loved and accepted in Jesus Christ than I ever dared hope, when was that gospel first good news for you, and how is it still today?
You know, I think it started for me at age 8, hearing about the gospel for the first time. But back then it was more clinging to Jesus out of fear and anxiety because I was an anxious little girl. You know, we always say in counseling that there's a little child inside of each of us. And for me, it was a little anxious 8-year-old girl that was worried that something bad was going to happen. And life proved that to be true, right? So I remember running to him at age 8 out of fear and anxiety, but it wasn't until college of being kind of in a season of sin and really for the first time leaning into grace and love and acceptance, not from a place of fear and anxiety, but from a place of love and acceptance. And I sometimes vacillate between those two places as an adult. But most of the time, I'm clinging to that grace and that acceptance and that love. And honestly, that's radically changed my internal world. So
I almost laugh at the question I'm about to ask you because it seems very pertinent. But you wrote this book, People Skills. Why now? And how have you seen it maybe change, especially after COVID and everything where we had this long period of isolation?
Yeah. It's funny because our fourth child is what we affectionately call a COVID baby. That's terrible. I don't think we should call him that. But he was born in the beginning of 2021. And we were just talking, he's 5 now, we were just talking about how that season must have shaped him, not even being able to see facial expressions for 2 years, and not going to Sunday school and preschool classes and homeschool co-ops and all of the things that would have influenced his interpersonal relationships, his attachment, his comfort with people, and how we actually see some of that in his personality. And there's some things we're having to navigate with him. But it's interesting because you take that season that we walked through as a country, but then you take the tech-saturated world that we currently live in with regards to our screens are in our faces all the time, where you used to have to go to the grocery store, you now just with a couple clicks of a button, leave it at my front door. I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even need to see anybody. We don't have to have those interpersonal relationships that we once had to have by default. And we're the most connected online, but the most isolated, lonely, and alone in real life. So that was, I would say, one reason. And between me and you guys, you probably feel this too. I don't even think it's as close to as bad as it's going to be. I think we're just on the verge of the crest of the wave of how bad this is going to get with our tech saturated world. So that was the first reason. But another reason, and probably the most important reason that I wrote People Skills is because I believe that Christians are not conveying God's love in the way that they want to. I think we've got this love and these good intentions deep down inside, but they're not necessarily coming across to the world because of our lack of people skills. I think we're being perceived as judgmental, cold, aloof, different things that maybe aren't in our heart, but we're not conveying the love of God because our junk is getting in the way. Our lack of people skills is getting in the way and convoluting that love. And I think of 1 Corinthians 9, where Paul says, I have become all things to all people so that by all means possible, some might be saved. And to me, that's the epitome of people skills, is learning to be as effective as I can in conveying God's love to the people he brings my way. I don't want to get in the way, so that by all means possible, some might be saved. And that's what we're working with, is conveying God's love to a lost and desperate world and doing as best as we can to communicate that love.
That's a super generous way of putting it. Like, that's so kind to be like, you guys, we want to see Jesus. We want people to know Jesus. But our mouths and how we're communicating with people are getting in the way. So I just think that's super kind. One way I've put it, which is behind the scenes, I've just thought this to myself and said it to Matt. And then I'm like, let's talk about it on the podcast. So I'll meet, I'll interact with people. And I'm like, I feel like they're still learning how to become a person. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what I mean by that, but when in reading your book, I was like,
that's interesting that you say that phrase.
That's what when I was reading your book, I was like, I think this is what I mean, is that they lack communication skills and they lack like we've just kind of missed some basic human interaction skills.
You're right.
Can you think about that with me? Can you go there?
I totally get that. And part of me is like, well, how could we be good at this when Christians don't learn people skills? We are missing a lot, because what do we learn in childhood? What do we learn in church? If anything, it's say please, thank you, and sorry. And that's like the extent of our skills. That's not going to get you through life. Mm-hmm. And I also think people have a misunderstanding. They think that people skills has to do with being extroverted or good with people. That is one small fraction, because so much of it is also what's going on inside of us, our belief systems, our narratives, how that informs everything that we're doing, the things that we have insight and awareness and ownership over. And a lot of people are really lacking in awareness. One reason I know this to be true, a year and a half ago, I released a book called Soul Care. And it was about the 6 rhythms that Jesus practiced to care for his soul and to stay filled, and how we all need to stay filled. And as I was sharing that book with people, what are you writing about? What are you working on? The majority of people would say, I need that. I'm spread too thin. I am burnt out. I need that book. That was the message. With people skills, when people would ask, what are you writing about? And I would tell them, the majority of people would say, I know someone who could use that book. Oh, my husband could. Oh, my daughter. Oh, my neighbor. Oh, this generation. And I was like, how interesting that the awareness isn't there, because burnout feels like a badge of honor. I'm doing too much. I'm doing too much. I'm grinding. I'm hustling. Feels like a badge of honor, even though it isn't. But people skills, very few people have the awareness and insight to say, you know what? I need to work on this.
Yeah.
I need to do better with this.
Okay. And Sorry, Matt, I know it's your turn to ask a question, but I was just thinking, I was like, okay, so that requires humility in order
really
to
does.
self-perceive, but it also requires people to say, hey, honey.
Exactly.
Like to
Objective.
myself, other people with whom we're in relationship to, who can be like, hey, you might want to work on that. And that requires close relationship and the ability to hear and be heard.
You're right. It requires a mirror.
Yeah.
And it also requires an invitation from us. Like
Totally.
many times I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Many times it's like the problem is you, which is why Matthew 5, Jesus he's got the people skills,
Yeah.
And he's like, stop looking at the speck in your brother's eye. First, remove the plank from your own eye, and then you will be able to see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. What I love about that passage is it's not ignoring that other people need to take ownership. It's not ignoring that I need confrontation and feedback, but it's saying if you deal with your 80% first, you will then have the clarity of mind to go and approach your brother and say, okay, could you adjust this? But when you're blind to your own junk, you cannot have the awareness that you need and the accuracy to go tell them, hey, could you do this differently? So better relationships really always begin with me. I am the common denominator. It always begins with me.
Oh, yes. Good.
So you mentioned Matthew 5, and I think also the whole stepped kind of confrontation model of like go individually and then bring, someone else who might be involved and then go to more of a corporate space. I feel like a lot of times these confrontations happen on Facebook. Right. And that's like the first step.
In the comment section.
Yeah. And so like there are these very public spaces. There are these very like, there's no relationship usually to have that, like have it be a meaningful confrontation. And full disclosure, I'm a 9. I hate confrontation. It is not one of my people skills. It's one that I need to develop. And I guess like with that, for someone such as myself who has to step into conflict every now and again, are there any people skills that I should be working on to develop self-awareness and confidence in that space?
Yeah. So when we think about confrontation, I think about the 4 different personality types when it comes to confrontation. And there's aggressive, which is, I think about when you go to a restaurant, for example, and let's say your order comes out wrong, and how are you going to react? There's a type of person who's aggressive, and they're just going to rail like, this is wrong. You need to make it right now. I expect a refund. This should never happen. And an aggressive person is honoring their version of the story, but they're not honoring the person in front of them. Then we move on to a passive person who's like, oh, it's fine. No big deal. The waiter's probably having a rough day and there's so much going on. So they're not going to say anything. They're honoring the other person's story, but they're not honoring their own version. They're not honoring themselves. And then we move into super unhealthy, which is passive aggressive. I'm not going to say anything, but then I'm going to act rude when the waiter comes over. I'm not going to give him a tip. I'm going to give him the cold shoulder. I'm going to slam my stuff down, but I'm not going to say anything. They're not honoring their version of the story, nor are they honoring the person in front of them. But assertiveness, which is what we're talking about for you, decides I'm going to honor my version of the story because this matters to God and to me, all while honoring the person in front of me. And that's the skill I think we've lost. I think some people who think they're confrontational or they're good at confrontation are actually probably aggressive, and they're not that good at it. They're not good at honoring them and honoring me. And I think that's, to me, the goal of assertiveness and confrontation is I need to honor my version all while honoring you. It doesn't mean we're going to agree, but I can at least honor you, respect you, speak to you with kindness in the way that I'm communicating my needs and what's going on inside of me. So that's kind of how I see it. And I feel like when you keep it, when you spiritualize it in that way, like I need to honor myself the God gave me this temple. I am a human being. I love your neighbor as you love yourself. There is a balance that needs to happen. When you see it that way, you're honoring God by honoring both versions. It kind of helps you step into confrontation with a little bit more confidence.
I love how your book, you break it down like, here's the skill, here's how we can live it out, here's some questions for reflection. I loved that. I really liked, Matt, you didn't see this chapter, but the chapter on like emotional depth and the whole like scuba suit versus like bobbing around at the surface. Can you talk to us about that? Because I am someone who could live on the bottom of the ocean.
You're the scuba diver.
I am. And Matt can go there with me, but I think I can feel shame at being like, because everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're so deep. You have to be so deep. And it's like, just come to the surface. Can you talk to us a little bit about people who love the depth and then people who also love bobbing at the surface? Help us unpack that as a people skill.
Yeah. And my husband and I can relate to this too. When we talk about depths in conversation and communication, he always says he's like the guy in the shallow end floating in the duck floaty, which is a funny picture because he's 6'4", but it's kind of like how he relates to this emotional depth.
Yeah.
And he jokes that I'm the scuba diver and I need to come up for air sometimes, which is true.
Yeah.
And really there's these levels of depth. And I think sometimes couples especially feel like they're missing each other. And in some ways they are, because they're on different levels of depth in conversation. And so the healthiest relationships know how to go up and down through all the different levels throughout the day. And they're kind of comfortable in all of the levels. The first level is the facts. It's a basic conversation you can have with a stranger. What's going on outside? What's the weather like? Who's playing tonight? Just really basic facts. And then level 2 is a little bit more of myself. It's my opinions and my ideas. So my personality is attached to the conversation because it's my opinion about this sports team, my opinion about this political topic, my opinion about the weather. Do I like this cold weather? Do I hate it? It's a little bit more of me. The third level is much more of me because it's about my feelings. Like, what do I feel? I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling alone. I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling inadequate. And it's inviting somebody in to that conversation that's attached to who I am as a person. And then even deeper than that, you could say your belief system, your walk with the Lord, your faith. There's something really intimate about sharing that relationship with God where the curtain is totally pulled back. It's just you and the Lord, and being able to invite somebody in those spaces. And so if you think about it, some families, they live in level 1 and 2. And so that's their comfort zone. They haven't learned to swim in level 3. And so there's a learning curve to figuring this out and to getting comfortable in each of the levels. But I think that learning curve matters because it's what makes us feel really connected and invites intimacy in our closest relationships.
Can you talk about, because I heard you say facts, and then there's beliefs or even deeper. I have a lot of conversations with religious people, Christians of varieties, and they'll say facts about their faith, but I don't always hear their like belief system. Can you talk about the difference between the two? Yeah.
To me, the fourth level is like, what is this rooted in? You know, where is this coming from? What situations happening in the present might be rooted in experiences from the past. Like even when I started talking about that 8-year-old little girl inside of me, some of my beliefs about God were formed from some of that childhood stuff, that trauma. And so learning to get to some of those roots of this is where it's coming from. These are the narratives underneath the surface that are sometimes healthy, sometimes unhealthy. Let's like go there with each other and our walk with God and what God is teaching us, sins and struggles. You know, that's a whole level of depth. Even what God is teaching me as far as like in my soul. This is what I'm learning. This is where I'm being convicted. This is where I'm engaging with the Spirit. To me, that's a very intimate part of who we are. Not just, oh, I read John chapter 3 last week and the historical components, but like, how am I engaging with this? Where is God prompting my heart, and where's the Spirit moving in me?
Where does play fit in? Right? We talk about having like the young child still inside, like and play, and I would say like exuberant play. I think exuberance is still vulnerable, and play is hard, I think, for many adults, especially if we grew up in a certain culture. I guess, would that be, what level of depth would kind of the lighthearted, playful, but real connection kind of be at? Where would you see that happening?
That's a good question. I wonder if in some ways it breaches all the different ones, I wonder if in some ways it can be superficial and fun, but it can also be deep. And I think that depends on the person and how deep they're going to allow that to go in their engagement with people. But I do think in and of itself, it's an important part of being a healthy person. I'll shift back to soul care for a minute. One of the rhythms of soul care that Jesus himself practiced is the rhythm of savor, of just enjoying life in all of its fullness, in all of its glory, and being able to just relish in that, and not just be like, what's next? Go, go, go. What's our checklist? Hustle and grind. But just being able to savor and enjoy. And I think of that when you say play, of like, I think it could be superficial, like, hey, let's play a game of checkers or chess. But I also think it could be deep. But so could many topics, actually. I think it just depends on how deep we're willing to take it. It could be superficial, but it could also be really meaningful depending on our level of comfort with where we want to bring that through the layers.
There's like an ethos. There's like I don't know, it's like a personality trend right now of, I walk into a room and I'm just going to be me, and anyone that triggers me, you're dead to me. You talk about triggers. You talk about like, help us talk to us if we are like that, or if we're trying to engage a friend who we know is like that, where we're like, I just feel like I'm always walking on eggshells. Like, totally, this world is like trigger happy with avoiding triggers. How can we practice people skills if that's a pattern we or a friend are in?
I think one thing that I'm finding really concerning in our culture today, that's definitely seeping into the church, is the cutoff culture.
Yeah.
It's like our pain tolerance has become so low. And I think partly it's because of an overcompensation for seasons in history when our pain tolerance was so high that we tolerated abuse and toxicity and kept our mouths closed.
Yep.
That's not healthy either.
Right.
But I feel like now we've compensated to a level where we have such low pain tolerance in relationships that the smallest thing triggers us and causes us to cut off relationships completely. And I think there's a couple things we have to learn about this. Number one, a big part of our triggers is revealing what needs to be healed inside of us. So we have to have our eyes open. Like, if I'm getting triggered, there's probably a theme. And where is that theme coming from? I talk about triggers as emotional sore spots. Recently I was leaving the house with my kids and I hit my shoulder on a coat rack on my way out in a rush, and it caused a really big black and blue spot.
Oh.
And later in the day, when my husband came to give me a hug, he pressed on it and I reacted and like shouted. It was like, get away from me. That really hurts. He didn't cause the wound, but he pushed on it. And this is what's happening to so many of us in our everyday life. As people get close, they start to push on these sore spots that we have carried and maybe didn't even know that they existed in isolation because there's nobody pushing up against them. And oftentimes it's a sore spot of rejection or inadequacy or fear of abandonment or whatever else. We could list a whole thing of what these wounds underneath the surface could be. And when somebody pushes against it, we automatically assume they're the problem rather than, okay, Lord, What are you revealing inside of me? Where is this inadequacy coming from? And how can you help me heal that so that I can remain in proximity with people and engage? The other thing too to remember is that relationships are not a yes or no box. Do I trust you? Do I not? It's a spectrum of 0 to 10. You know, if somebody is 10 out of 10 trustworthy and they're showing that through their life, I give them 10 out of 10 access, 10 out of 10 engagement. Whereas if through life, somebody's a 3 out of 10 trustworthy, I only give them 3 out of 10 access and engagement. It's not a yes or no box. And not only that, but relationships can change over time. Someone that used to be an 8 in one season might be a 4 in another season, and I'm allowed to adjust. But just because they've done something to hurt me, one thing, a pain point, doesn't mean I cancel them, I cut them out of my life. We're not just looking at pain points, we're looking at patterns when we're making those decisions of who to invite in our lives and who to love from a distance.
You give the example of your, the coat rack and your shoulder and then your husband hugging you. And obviously there's like a very tangible representation. He didn't intend to harm you. And that physical way, like it's obvious to see, like, oh, okay, he's not punching you in the shoulder, he's giving you a hug. But sometimes when it's an emotional wound, that especially if someone is unaware of some of those patterns, it becomes less obvious, and the knee-jerk reaction can be like, oh, this person did this thing, therefore shove. How would you say, like, to slow the process down, and to do some of that introspective work? Like, are there tools that we can use, I guess first and foremost for ourselves when we feel the trigger, and then, like, how do we invite someone into that space of kind of remaining vulnerable, remaining connected?
I would say step one is that we never react from the height of emotion, because emotions are a signal that we're supposed to pay attention to something. It's a signal that God is saying, oh, pay attention. So I can't respond before I've paid attention. That's how I have to see my emotions. And so having a time to reflect, sometimes we feel like when we have heightened emotions, that's the time when we're most motivated to talk about stuff because it's all coming up. But that's the worst time to talk about stuff. That's the best time to pull back and reflect until my brain's back online and I can look at all these feelings that I had and say, okay, where did that come from? What needs to be addressed? What needs to be healed? I'm looking for patterns. I'm trying to get to the root of why that might have bothered me so much. I need to sit with it before I react and really do the work so that then I can go back and respond. Hey, when this happened, this is what was going on inside of me. Again, going back to Matthew 5, first remove the plank from my own eye. Okay, let me deal with this. And then I will see clearly to be able to go to my spouse, my brother, my sister, my friend, and say, okay, here's what I need you to take ownership of after I have done what I needed to do. And sometimes there's going to be something that still needs to be confronted after the fact of like, hey, when you said it that way, it really made me feel inadequate because this is what's going on inside of me. In the future, I'd really appreciate if you worded it differently. That's gonna mean something to me. It's okay to still have something that needs to be adjusted or confronted, but not until I've done the work first. So really, we got to get into a better habit of when we feel that big feeling, knowing that the next best step is to pull back and pay attention.
Okay. So kind of broadening it, because I think a lot of people will take the wound and that will teach them something. They will learn something about themselves, but usually it's the wrong message. And a lot of people, I know in my practice, I see a lot more people with social anxiety than 10 years ago. And it's like the wounding, whether it's been dealt with or undealt with, has led them to a place of being like, I don't trust, and I am not confident, I'm not secure in relationship. And I guess how can we encourage people who are in that space of like, it's not a It's not just the wound that happened this one time with this one person. It's the anticipation that I will be wounded in that same spot every single time I interact with someone. How do you work with that kind of more pervasive dynamic of my safety comes from isolation?
Have you ever wondered if things like shyness and social anxiety are not actually a personality thing? I think sometimes we say, oh, it's just your personality. She's just shy. And maybe it's more of accumulation of our experiences that cause us to go down a certain path. Even those who are extremely extroverted, like we assume that that's the healthy version. But being the vortex that wants to hog all the attention in every room is not necessarily a healthy thing, right? So really it comes down to figuring out why, like what's underneath the surface of this social anxiety, what's underneath the surface of this shyness, and getting to the roots of some of those beliefs from the past. Where did they come from? Why did I learn to be like this? When did this serve me in one season of life? I often tell my clients what served you in one season of life will often sabotage you in another season if it's not faced and confronted and replaced with truth. So it's like, well, maybe back then being shy kept me safe. Being shy kept me from being the center of attention so I wouldn't get bullied. Being shy kept me from getting yelled at by my parents. And so you kind of carry that with you through adulthood. And those are some of the underlying things that need to be addressed in order for us to begin to do things differently. We have to change the narrative. Because I could say, well, walk in a room, like part of people's skills, and I think what people will be surprised by is it isn't just, okay, walk into a room, make this joke, say this phrase, and all of a sudden you'll become extroverted. It's a lot more of like, well, what's under that? Where is that coming from? How can I begin to shift that belief system? When I walk into a room, what are the beliefs that are coming with me that affect what I then do and how I engage? Because that's what really needs to be confronted and healed and changed for the whole equation to start to shift.
Can you tell us about a time when you were wrestling with what might be called social anxiety, and then how did you get through it?
Definitely when I started speaking, you probably know this, but like I was not a public speaker. I was a one-on-one counselor. Like I was in a room with one person and that was my comfort zone. I love people. I consider myself an extrovert. But next thing you know, I'm writing books and I'm getting invited to speak in front of like thousands of people. And it's like, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And you feel this pressure to perform, to be who they need you to be. It's like they put me on this stage. I better measure up to it, So there was really a season where I felt like speaking felt like climbing Mount Everest. It was like this huge endeavor that I had to prepare myself for emotionally and mentally and physically. It would actually affect me physically. And I just remember very clearly one specific day when I felt like God confronted my false and unhealthy narrative. And he's like, this isn't about you. This is about them. I have called you to go and give them something. You're not there to receive approval, feedback, praise. They like you, they don't like you. That you're not there to receive, you're there to give. So just go and give. This is about them. You go and serve them the way that I've called you to serve them. And the moment it was no longer about me and what I'm receiving from the audience, are they falling asleep? Are they happy? Are they excited? No, it was just about what I have to offer them. That changed so much for me. And I just go in there now and I'm like, this is what I have to give you. Whatever you have to give back, whether it's a tomato you're throwing at me or whether it's applause, it doesn't matter because I'm not there to receive that. I'm just there to give.
That's it.
And I wonder if we could even apply that when we walk into a room of strangers. Like, oh no, what are they thinking? How do I look? Do they think I'm too fat? Do they think I'm funny? It's not about what I'm here to receive. It's about what God has given me specifically to give. And I have something to give. And that is love. And that is kindness. And that is respect to the people in front of me. I have something to give. And when I walk into a room with that type of mindset shift, I really do think it starts to change everything on the inside and changes how I show up in that room.
It changed everything for me when I heard Francis Chan say that before he speaks, he always asks God for love for his audience, which is what you're saying. It's, God, will you give me love for this audience? Because then out of that love, you want to serve. And then it's not about you. It's just about God's love through you to them.
Exactly. And it just is so much healthier and more fun.
It's so much more fun.
It just frees you up to enjoy it.
Oh, so good. For people who are listening and are like, as I look at my life and I look at my wounds and I look at what, like the heritage I've been given, even maybe from their parents, they're like, literally, I missed basic life human skills. Can you talk to them? How can they begin today to really begin to practice these people skills as we're all learning, myself included, how to be a person?
Yeah, I think we start small and we don't get overwhelmed, and we realize that the journey of healing is a beautiful invitation that God has given us because he trusts us with it. He trusts us with healing. When God reveals something that we need to alter, transform, change, it's not to shame us, it's to heal us. Yeah. So we start with that mindset of like, this is an invitation. Thank you, God, that you've opened my eyes to this invitation. And I also think the mindset shift of healing is hard work, but living unhealed is much harder. It seeps into all of your relationships. And I think sometimes we think that living unhealed is the shortcut, but really that's the heavier burden. Mm-hmm. And so for those of us who God says, heal, go deeper, it's an invitation to live lighter, to live unburdened, to live free. And so, yeah, the work up front might be a little bit more difficult, but it's to have a lighter life in the long run. And I think if you just start to shift your narrative about it, it makes it easier. And one thing that I appreciate about people skills is that it's 31 miniature bite-sized lessons. So you don't have to read all 31, you don't have to dive into the whole thing. I say take one piece at a time, sit with it for a week. It doesn't have to be done in 31 days. It could be done in 31 weeks. It could be done in 31 months. The goal is that you take these little bite-sized lessons, sit with them, allow the Holy Spirit to reveal what needs to be healed. Take your time, be consistent, and watch how it actually begins to make you feel unburdened, to make you feel more connected to people, to increase your enjoyment in life. And what Jesus says, living abundantly, you start to actually feel it and live it out. And I do believe it's not just this like lofty goal of living abundant. It's actually available to us.
That's a word. Thank you, Debra. Everyone, go get people skills. It will be linked in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your mind and heart and wisdom.
It's a pleasure. I love connecting with you guys, and I love what you're doing in this space to help people heal. Yay. So thank you for letting me be a part of it.
All right, well, we said goodbye to Debra. We are going to link to her book, People Skills, in the show notes. Again, I love what she just said. Don't take 31 days. You don't have to. Take 31 months if you need to. Also going to link to her Instagram. You can follow her there. Matt, what stood out to you from what we just talked about?
A lot. I think the biggest thing was when she was talking about not reacting out of the height of the emotion. And I know there have been many times in our relationship where you have brought something to me, and in the height of emotion, that's when I then reveal things to you.
Wait, no, say more sentences on this. I need more tea spilled. No, can you just say a little bit more about what you mean? Because it's a little unclear.
So like if you've ever had an issue, and I know hard to believe that you might have an issue with me because I'm so awesome. But if you bring an issue to me and then it's like, that's my open door to then bring maybe an issue I was carrying to you. Because, and I think part of it is like the emotion is high, therefore the motivation is high. And you've told me ad nauseum, can you not do that? And I'm working on it. And so I think that was one of the things that stuck out, was just that growth in assertiveness, that growth in, hey, I need to approach it when it's not the high emotion, when it's not like, hey, here's this thing that's bringing up the emotion in me that is a more thoughtful, way. And it's not like I'm screaming at you or anything.
No,
it's just
never.
like, it's just the timing. I'm like quick to put in like, well, here's what I've been thinking about. And it usually doesn't go well.
It is the
I need help, guys. Please help me.
It is hard because I'll like bring something up and I'm like, blah, blah, blah thing. And then you're like, and furthermore, also me. And I'm like, no, I had to like pray and like set up this whole like conversation. And you don't get to just like add to cart also my confrontation of you because it doesn't feel good on my end. Because I'm like, no, I already prayed about this, but we are working on it. And I'm super encouraged even, this is not our first day of marriage, thankfully. And this is not our first conversation we've had, but like, I am encouraged that you're thinking about it and we can have grace for each other in the conversation. I liked the reminder just now about praying for love for your audience. That's the Francis Chan version, but really I'm going to give. And that really requires whether we're going to a party that we're feeling, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so social anxiety. We're going to a small group. We're going to a new church. We're going wherever. But if we can do the soul work, the pre-work before going out into the world and knowing who we are, knowing we're loved, get filled up by the Lord, and then we can actually give when we go out. I think that really is going to change the game. And I thought about that for the social media world. When I post things, even in the socials, out of like serving and giving, it's so much better. Doesn't mean like, and then it goes viral. It's just, the whole experience is way better when it's giving. What did you guys think? What stood out to you? She is so good. She reminds me of our second born Juju, of Debra, where she is like, she seems very, very smart. She's so smart and then can explain it in very simple ways. That takes high intelligence. But what did you guys think? What stood out to you from the taking complex ideas and making them simple as far as people skills? We'd love to hear from you. podcast@LoriKrieg.com or find me on the socials on Lori Krieg on Instagram. You can DM me there, or you can find us at the Hold My Heart Podcast Facebook group. Also, if you like the podcast, would you take a minute to rate and review it? It means a lot. It helps others find us. But thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again to Debra Fileta. She said she's going to name her middle kid.
Her husband wanted
to name one of her kids.
Save some.
Fileta. That's how you can remember it. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you. Thanks to WCSG for hosting. Thanks to Zach. The Zach of all trades is in the studio. Steve Odell is out for a little bit, so we're super thankful. Thanks to Bethany Sanderson. And for all of us here at the Hold My Heart Podcast, we'll see you, our friends, later.